I am going to be live streaming this and the Trian Partners Town Hall. I want to share this out, so that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, 2 more. Okay, guys, so we've got 16 seconds to basically what is going to be happening here. So I don't really know how to put this up together, so I'm just going to give you my, turn it up a little bit.
Thank you all for joining us today.
Just wait a second.
My name
It's
is
already on.
Sono, and I'm here with Trian's nominees to Disney's board, Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo.
Come on. Piece of shit. Okay, I've got a black screen, but hopefully you'll be able to hear.
But before we dive into questions, Nelson and Jay, why don't you introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about your backgrounds.
Thank you. Good to be here, and thanks for having me. I'm Trian's CEO and founding partner. We started this firm almost 20 years ago. Before that, I was running and building public companies for the benefit of all shareholders. We try and create long-term value. So some people call us a hedge fund, which is a real misnomer, because our average length of stay in a company when we get on the board, and most often we do get on the board, is 6 years and climbing, which is longer than many mutual funds. So we are truly a long-term investor. So we go into these, what we think were once great companies that have sort of lost their way, and we try to help them with a roadmap to get back to being great once again. Look, we want Disney to be great again. I grew up with Disney. I have 10 kids. They all grew up with Disney.
10
I have
kids?
such great fond memories of Disney.
Wow.
Not just the park, but the movies, all the other wonderful things that they have to offer. And it's a company that is iconic. And if you look iconic up in the dictionary, Disney, the mouse ears will show right up in Webster. That's what this company is, and it has truly lost its way.
Hi, I'm Jay Rasulo. I've spent 30 years of my life working at the Walt Disney Company. It was a joy. Every day it was a pleasure to know that you were creating part of the magic and distributing that and offering that magic to families around the world.
I'm gonna leave it
In my
on
last
until
15
these
years at the
guys
company, I spent
start.
10 years running the theme park division around the world. Prior to that, I was at Euro Disney. And in my last 5 years, I was chief financial officer of the company, which was incredible to experience.
Jay Rasulo
all
is a
the businesses beyond
badass
the park,
executive.
which I was clearly had a very deep
I want you guys
experience
to know that.
Thank you both. Before we get to the questions from shareholders, I want to remind everyone who has questions about voting mechanics to visit restorethemagic.com, where there's an FAQ that will explain the universal proxy card. With that, let's go to the questions.
Okay.
First question is, what if I do not get a blue card? How should I vote to support Trian?
Jay, tell
All
me.
right.
You can vote for Nelson and me on any card, white, blue, or green.
All right.
And we're asking you to withhold
This is a
votes
question
for
and
Ms.
answer thing.
Lagomasino and Mr. Froman, and also all of the Blackwell candidates.
Thank you. Next question. What do Nelson and Jay bring to the Disney board?
Well, look, I have a long track record of being on boards.
I'm
Sometimes
not
where at
sure
first I may not have
they're
been
gonna ask the
invited,
question that I asked.
but at the end, everybody was thrilled that I was there. So what we bring is the necessary skills and experience to help reverse the trends. And Disney has had a lot of failures, a lot of negative trends. And I think we've got the understanding, the knowledge, and the incentive to change that. I mean, One of the things you have to do when you get on a board is to make sure there's an ownership mentality in the room.
Yeah.
Because the people you are
Yeah.
representing
No,
all own stock.
they're just
This
asking
board doesn't own
kind
very
of general
much stock.
questions right
Our
now.
CEO doesn't own very much stock. What we live
I'll
and
go
die
back.
on is how this company performs.
I think what I bring, what Nelson of course brings, is independence, experience, a sense of urgency.
Oh, hi, Corianne,
and
by the way.
incredible passion for this company. I am so passionate about this company. The only thing I don't like about my Disney experience has been in the last 5 years when old friends and colleagues call and say, what's going on at Disney? I say, don't ask me. It's killing me. So I think we have a lot to add to the board. Nelson knows how to mobilize a board. He's done it with 1 seat, he's done it with 2 seats, and it's all it takes sometimes. I mean, these are smart men and women, incredibly successful. They just need an ignition, they just need somebody to be speaking the truth.
Why should I withhold on Michael Froman, Maria Elena Lagomasino, and all 3 Blackwell's nominees?
All right, they're talking about the other
These
activists.
two, because first of all, Maria Lagomasino, she was on governance and headed the compensation committee. I would say on pay is a good referendum for how a company pays its employees, and Disney has had more negative say on pays than almost any company that I've read about. The pay is not aligned with the shareholder returns at all, and that's very important. So the governance is a very important issue, and Froman is on the governance committee, which is clearly lacking here because succession has been awful.
You know, interestingly, Mr. Froman and Ms. Lagomasino only possess 1 of the 6 skills that Disney self-identifies as central to Disney strategy. So I think they're very obvious candidates to be replaced.
Thank you.
Like my setup,
What are Nelson and
phones.
Jay's plans for Disney as board members?
Jay, why don't you get started?
Well, first and foremost, I think we believe in delighting Disney fans, and that delight at Disney creates an incredible commercial flywheel. It is unique to the company. It generates enormous returns for shareholders when it's working. I've seen it work. I've been part of it working, and I think this is an incredibly important thing. To accomplish that, I think there's a number of issues regarding the enhancement of corporate governance, and most importantly, accountability. We have to accelerate media profitability. Remember, the Parks and Resorts division is 70% of the EBIT of the Walt Disney Company. It means that the other media divisions are actually doing worse than peers, far worse, but that in aggregate with the Parks and Resorts profitability, they look a little better. Regardless, that business only has a 6% rate of return when competitors in this space have margins of 15 to 20%, over 20% in the case of Netflix, and that margin is 7% at Disney.
Wow.
There's something fundamentally wrong there.
There is.
I think that bears repeating. Netflix did over $30 billion in revenue, generated about a 22% margin. Okay, people say, well, that's just because it's streaming. Then you flip over to Warner, which did around $40 billion in revenue. And they got about the same margin that Netflix did. And they're in all levels of media, right? Then we get to our favorite, Disney. They're the big daddy. They did about $55 billion in revenue. I remember I told you, Netflix, Warner, 22. Now these guys are almost twice as
Hey,
big as
Cross,
Netflix.
it's okay.
They should be doing way better. 7%. 7% margin.
Seems like there's room.
There's a little room for improvement. In fact, one could say that they probably should do better margins because of the size and scope.
Nelson and I really want to be the voice for the fans of Disney,
I'm back.
something I did for my whole career, and also the voice of the shareholders.
I'll let
For
you
the
guys
shareholders
watch
in
it.
the boardroom.
It's gonna work.
And I think that rigor, accountability, and transparency are the keys to those.
Well said, Jay. I couldn't have said that better for sure. We want all the shareholders to share in the ups and downs of Disney, not just the downs, and management just gets the ups. That doesn't work.
We've talked about Bob Iger, and the question for you is, do Nelson and Jay want to fire Bob Iger?
No. And I want to put an exclamation point.
Interesting.
I've had several proxy fights.
Interesting.
Disagreements with management teams where it didn't have a fight. Never once did I come in to fire the CEO. We had the biggest proxy fight in history with P&G. They spent supposedly $100 million to keep me off the board. We won one board seat. The rest is history. I got on the board, the stock was in the 70s. 3.5 years later, I got off. It was about 160. But even more important than the stock price, revenues went up. Market shares, very important, went up, and margins went up, okay? So that's what I think that Jay and I can bring to this company. We're not here to fire anybody. We're not here to point fingers. We just want this company to start to do.
This is interesting, guys.
In my case, I've worked closely alongside of Bob for 15 years. I don't think we ever had a crossword between us. I'm certain that I can work with Bob Iger again.
So Disney has said that you'll be disruptive board members. I'd like to give you a chance to address that point.
Yes. We are a director that does its work, okay? And when you're on the board, you get a load of paper. You can get hundreds of pages on the financials from the last board meeting, and maybe even thousands of pages if they're doing a transaction. You'll get a legal document. You tell me any one of those directors who are going to use their staff to review those papers, they can't. What we do when we get on a board, we have confidentiality agreements signed by our shop. And our legal team looks over all the contracts, our analysts look over all the numbers, and we come in and we're very well versed. And we don't come into a board meeting to have an argument.
6 of the board members on Disney are either active CEOs or executive chairs in big companies with a lot of work on their own issues. And to do the kind of work that Disney needs really needs more focus and more determination than that.
I didn't know that.
What about the argument that you are just stand-ins for Ike Perlmutter and there's too much personal animosity to function together?
Let me answer that. We have a very big investment. That's a silly argument. Very silly. It doesn't even hold water.
We're our own people. We don't carry people's water. I certainly don't. And I have absolutely no animosity towards anybody on that board. I don't actually know any of them. Ironically, in this process, I did not overlap when I was an executive of the company with a single board member other than Bob. And not a single one has reached out to me, texted me, written me, asked me why I'm interested in doing this, what I think I can add. No contact from the Disney board.
This is a question for you, Nelson.
Okay.
Why do you love Disney?
I have 10 kids. Okay, let's start there. And one of the greatest treats I could give to my kids, one of the great promises I would hold out if they did well in school or did well in their sports, was a trip to Disney. And I gotta tell you, I enjoyed it myself. And because I love to see the smile on their faces, and it was great. The problem is, when I go to Disney, I said historically, I'm seeing the same rides. So when my 40-year-olds were 15, you know, but I do love Disney, and it's part of America. You know, Disney is America. It's so important, and we've got to give people what they want to see. When people go into a movie, they want to escape. You go into a movie theater, or you turn on television, you've got an hour, hour and a half, you want to get lost. You don't want to hear about all of the issues of the day. That's your one place to escape.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
This is what we needed to
obviously,
hear.
having spent 30 years of my career working at the company, being to help create the magic that Disney is, I have a very, very deep involvement. Kids are Disney kids. My wife's a Disney wife. We are a family that really lived so much of our life surrounded by Disney. I had the opportunity to open up Hong Kong Disneyland, to set 2 new cruise ships to sail, countless vacation club property in Hawaii, ran Euro Disney. Disney runs in my blood. I love the company.
So if you're successful, you'll be two board members among many. Will 2 board seats actually make a difference?
Yeah.
Most definitely. You've got to be willing to devote your time.
What's your strategy to turn Disney's studio back to creating new and original animated and live action films rather than an endless slew of remakes?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And interestingly,
Oh my God.
all the way back in the 1960s, Walt said, you know what? I'm not a remake guy. I like to have new creative ideas. And in my time at Disney, there were so many new creative ideas.
Hey, Mike, how you
really
doing?
Animated. The love of the company, the love of the brand, and that commercial flywheel that we've spent a lot of time talking about. So I think we need to initiate. I don't know how they've lost their way. From the outside, it's very hard to see. But with 5 losers in a row in the box office, they certainly have lost their way, and undoubtedly lost their way as their treasured place in animation.
Yep.
But I think we need to have a board-led review of the process, of the people, of the structure that includes a view of studio operations and culture. Something's been lost. By the way, it's not the first time it's happened at Disney, and it is fixable, but I think it takes more, a little more study by the board, or at least asking questions as to what's going on, why.
You've got to have direct accountability in a company. You can't manage these things by committee. You've got to have one man or one woman who's responsible from revenue to profit, to revenue to EBIT in every one of those divisions, and get out of the way and let that man
Hit the likes, guys.
do hopefully a great job.
Next question, how will you help the parks to stay competitive but still allow average families to afford to visit?
Here's a good one.
Jay, you
Well-
get started on that one.
Well, I think there's a careful balance between new, exciting new things around, beloved franchises, new franchises, but also the general upkeep of the property, and to make it feel like Walt used to say to the cast members, every day ought to feel like opening day here. I want somebody that arrives to feel like this is opening day, and it's all bright and shiny. So I think there's always that balance. But when I was running the parks, we used to put together a plan that had a mix of those things I just described, and it had a price tag. We priced out each one, and we'd go to senior management and ultimately the board and say, this is what we need over the next 5 years. But that process, when they did their investor day, they threw out 60 billion, here's 60 billion. There wasn't any timing, there wasn't any products. No one gets excited by hearing we're going to spend 60 billion. People get excited by hearing we're going to have this new attraction, this new show, and we're going to do this and that. And I feel like that's what drives the business, that's what drives the excitement, that's what creates the vacancy for
Thanks,
people to
Kojak.
come and visit and have a great time.
Stop it.
But what's really happened is that most of what they've announced has to do with new pricing schemes. We used to have fast passes, now you gotta pay for them with this new system, Genie Plus, but you have to pay for it. And it feels like guests and many people I know who go to the park tell me, boy, I really felt like every time I turned around, they were nickel and diming me. And that leaves a
I knew he was gonna say that.
Mouths, because it fights the magic.
I was at a park earlier this year in Orlando, and the guys gave me a balloon. They gave me a Mickey Mouse balloon, and it was a great balloon. But how much that balloon cost? $16.
What?
That is starting to get ridiculous. It's a beautiful balloon, by the way, but it was still $16 for a balloon.
A balloon.
Another question from one of your fellow shareholders. I'm a father of 2 young children. I find it increasingly hard to find content that we can all sit down and watch together.
Good question.
Will you restore the family content and timeless stories that made Disney famous?
Well, I don't think the shareholder is alone. I think when I was at the company, and for all the years back to 1928 before that, when people saw the Disney name on a movie, they never asked the question that the shareholder is asking. Can I take my family to this movie? Are they gonna have a good time? And am I not gonna have to go home and explain what was going on between those people and why, and so on and so forth?
Thank you,
It was
Twitter.
guaranteed.
Get off the
Great
screen.
family content. Now I think people ask that question, and Bob Iger himself has said, I think we've moved too far away from entertainment into delivering messages.
Yes.
And I don't think that's what people want. I know lots and lots about Walt, what he said, what he did, because it was a real guiding principle. And he wanted people to escape their lives when they came into Disneyland. Do you know that from inside any Disney park, you cannot see any part of the outside world? And that is by design. There's actually something they call a sight cone. So you can, when you're saying, here's the cone, nothing can be built within that cone that might be visible to guests when they're in the park. And that should be the same philosophy they use in their films, in animation, in live action. You come into the theater, you sit down, you leave all that stuff outside the door, and you just enjoy yourself for an hour and a half or 8 or 10 hours in a park. That's what the magic is about.
Got another park-related question. Visiting Disney World has become confusing and frustrating. What would you do to improve the guest experience? You touched on this a little.
Well, I think that part of a great vacation is not all of the mechanics that you have to do to have that great vacation. And it's quite complicated to visit a Disney park now. You used to go, show up at the box office, buy a ticket and go in. Now it's a reservation system. It's become very, very cumbersome to experience the park. And I know that a lot of those things have been put in place to improve the experience, but I'm not sure about the balance between what's required logistically.
Keep the bureaucracy out of it.
That's something that is an experience that I've had personally, and certainly people I know who have gone to the parks have had that experience.
I also think that it's an experience, but it really is expensive for a family with a couple of kids to go to that park. And that's not the way it was meant to be.
Yep.
Especially when there are alternatives, and the alternatives are newer than what you're offering. So you gotta be very careful how hard you push that pricing mechanism.
Next question. It's been widely reported that with all the firings and upheaval, Disney's workplace culture has become toxic to the point that it's affecting the well-being of employees.
Really?
How do you propose to address that?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about a board-led review of the creative process and structure within the company. And from my experience at Disney, people feel disenfranchised when they're confused about who makes decisions, when they're confused about what the strategy is, and if it's any measure of what the people feel like inside the company, on the outside of the company, we can't understand the strategy at all. And I'm sure people inside the company feel the same way. So I think clarity and transparency goes a really long way, both inside and outside.
The most important asset most companies have, Disney being no exception, is the employees. When you go to the park, you're interacting with people who have to have a smile on their face. People there to help you, to make sure your stay is a pleasant one.
I'll tell you, to put an exclamation point on what Nelson just said, in all my years of running parks, I never got one letter about how great an attraction was, how great a restaurant was. The only letters were about cast members. And what Mary did for me, what Tom did for me, what happened when my child got sick, what happened when my child lost his balloon. These are the kinds of experiences. No, but these are the kinds of experiences that families go home talking about.
Wow.
Even if they love the attractions, they go home and talk about it. And what they want to communicate back to the company is how great the cast member experience was. So it's very important.
Nelson and Jay, what would you say to shareholders and fans who have concerns about the beloved movie franchises and other content?
Look, we have got to get the excitement back in our movies. When there was
Oh, I
a
bet.
new Marvel
Here you
movie
go.
coming out, or a Lucas movie coming out, I was going. I didn't care what the storyline was. It didn't make a bit of difference. I wanted to see that movie. And I don't know.
They're answering
in fact,
everybody's
I doubt
questions.
that people feel the same blind love for those movies because we can see the attendance. So that's what we need to come back with.
It's
We need to
being
understand
offended by
what
everything.
people really want to see. And like I said earlier, not get messages, but just let's get some real entertainment.
You know, I think that the interests of fans and shareholders in this regard are perfectly aligned. The fans, whether they're shareholders or not, they want to see the great Disney content. They want to know when they see a Disney or Pixar animated movie that this is something that is going to amaze and delight them and their kids.
Yep.
When they see a Marvel movie, they're going to get a great, good guy, bad guy story, et cetera, et cetera. But interestingly, this is also exactly what shareholders want, because those kind of great creative ideas and great creative movies are the wellspring of Disney's commercial flywheel. And the flywheel is something that no other company can have, where great movies show up as attractions in the park, great movies show up as animated stories on television, great movies show up as consumer products, and this is what creates the profit that Disney has been so fortunate over the years to create that make shareholders happy. So those interests are perfectly aligned.
Well, thank you, Nelson and Jay, for taking the time to share your perspectives today.
Okay, guys.
I also want to remind shareholders to please visit.
That was it. Oh boy. I don't know why that's going off. Let me go fix that beep. And then I'll come back and talk to you guys. All right. Oh, turned off. Good. So basically that last question was for probably 99,000 billion people that wrote to them asking about Lucasfilm and Marvel. Okay. Peltz talked about Lucasfilm. Rasulo, for some reason, didn't mention Lucasfilm. My thing is, what's going on at those places will definitely be looked at. Now, but I think they already are. I heard more about Kennedy today that I can't tell you. Suffice it to say that we may be getting good news sooner than we thought. Okay, there was more to the story than what everybody was willing to put out there, which is good news. What I think would happen is these two guys would probably give Favreau or whoever takes over as president of Lucasfilm the chance to really right the ship. Now, they've, like I said, on the Boxing Jedi, Jay, my friend Jay Cotto's channel today, it doesn't necessarily have to be right away that Kennedy leaves. And what we've got is already set up to erase the things that hurt the Star Wars franchise. Now, I go, Mr. Rasulo, I appreciate what you said about Marvel, but I don't care about Marvel. Let it be as woke and fucked up as it has to be. I don't care. Reason why is because I think it's just cotton candy for the brain, and I can't, do it. I don't really feel like it's part of an experience as somebody who wants to be, who's doing film and stuff like that. You know, do I agree with Martin Scorsese? Yeah. Okay. If you look at sci-fi fantasy like Star Wars, or fantasy like The Lord of the Rings, okay, you've got real stories that connect to people better than this cotton candy crap. Okay, and they are cinematic. When you walk into, if you go, let's say like they decide to do episodes 1 through 6 marathon. Okay, Star Wars episodes 1 through 6. That would be a cinematic experience. Okay, that would be, or a Lord of the Rings marathon. That would be a cinematic experience. Why? Because the writing, the cinematography, the direction, the special effects, VFX, all the rest of that stuff, the sound, the acting, the story, the writing. That is what makes a movie great. It is not, Hulk smash, and God, it is. It's just a can of, it's a can of sun-kissed soda, sugar for the brain, and no one, it's an escape, but to make it a meaningful something that stays with you, it has to reach into your soul in a way that a Marvel movie wouldn't. There's a reason why there's so many people pissed off about what's going on with Star Wars. All right? Because what grabbed the soul of the viewer and brought them into this event. Star Wars is not a movie, it is an event. It is a thing. It is a cultural touchstone in a way that nothing ever has been. Is the fact that these are stories that connect all human cultures together, that they're intrinsically known to us. Does that make sense? Lord of the Rings, the same thing. And I would say the Chronicles of Narnia, the hero's journey. Lucy's journey to Narnia and her hero, Edmund's hero's journey, Peter's. Okay, Susan's. All right, there you go. That is something, a familiar story to every culture. Okay, every culture. So that's why when we got Ray the Bestest Ivar and we saw our heroes being dragged through the mud, happily by J.J. Abrams, by Pablo Hidalgo, by all this shit, these shitty human beings, we were upset because it's not destroying what you loved as a kid. It is an attack on how these movies make you feel now, all right, even now, the memories you had and how they built who you were, okay? How they built who you were. Very important things. This is why we got pissed off. This is why we were like, what the fuck? And I think that if Peltz and Rasulo get on the board, it'll be a difference. In fact, I like the fact that that Peltz offered an olive branch to Iger. No, I don't want to fire him. I've never had a CEO fired anytime I sat on a board. All right. That is telling. Okay. That is telling. So now you're looking at Iger saying, he's really not threatening you, so why are you so scared? Then you gotta go, what? But the fact that they complained about the message that we're getting, the dykes in space with Vice Admiral Gender Studies, and the the Maoist doctrine lecture that Tico gave us, and you know, the two white male heroes turn out to be weak sauce. But and look, that's typical third wave feminist. You know, that's typical fourth wave feminist bullshit. The fact that, you know, at the very end of The Rise of Palpatard, you've got two lesbos kissing, just disgusting shit. Why would you take your kids to see that? All right, there's a reason why people are asking, we're asking that question. There's a reason why Peltz and Rasulo answered everybody's questions about Lucasfilm and Star Wars, Pixar, and Disney Animation all at the same time, because everybody was asking, what are you guys gonna do about that shit? We don't want the message anymore. We're sick of it. All right, I think the world has gotten to a place where, I mean, I'll give you an example. Doritos hired that guy who thinks he's a girl, who posted filthy, disgusting stuff about, you know, on X, and 2 days later, after it was made public, they fired him. All right, that's how the world is changing. Okay, you've got people, you've got different athletic organizations now. I think I've read one telling males who want to compete in women's sports, you're not allowed to. Okay, you've got, you know, more and more women saying, hey, all right. I mean, if you look at Vice Admiral Gender Studies, she's there to erase the feminine. You know, when George created Leia, when he created Padme, he created strong, resilient women who were women, okay? They, you know, looked like women. They behaved like women. They had that tender, gentle streak in them, like all women have. And, you know, they could both wear dresses or, you know, tunics and uniforms and be badass. But they always evolved right back to who they really were and what they were. Okay. I mean, like I've talked about this before. Women in mythology. Women in Viking lore and in Viking history, the actual history of Scandinavia, fought alongside the men. They wore dresses, okay? All right, you know, the story of Lagertha is a true story. She was a real person. And they fought alongside their men. Leia, Padme, okay. Warrior princesses, warrior queens are not out of the ordinary. Okay, what is out of the ordinary is when you've got, I'll give you the example of Andor. You've got these, let me look this up. I'll get you a picture here. Come on. Women of Andor. Purposely, I don't want any of those. Purposely looking unattractive. This is how Kathleen Kennedy wanted the women of this TV show to look. Purposely unattractive. Let's try purposely unattractive. If you see a feminine woman and you have a hard time with it, that's you. Okay, that's you. All right, you know, right now I'm wearing blue jeans and a jacket because I'm gonna go for a walk after I'm done talking to you guys. I, you know, when I go to mass, I wear appropriate clothing. All right. I don't show up in fatigues and my hair a mess and no makeup on and, daring someone to say something shitty to me. Okay. That's important. But you've got a generation of women who are intentionally overweight to make men not appeal to men. They color their hair bright blue, bright red, like the color red, not red hair, but like stop sign red, bright orange, bright green, acid green, all these icky colors. And what that says to me is that they're toxic. They don't like being a woman, and they're terrified of attracting the man. All right. I've got people in my family like that, and they're what pisses me off is they're allowed to do it. Not in my house, And the reason why? Because it's wrong. All right. What society has done is given into ugliness, and that's what we saw in The Force Awakens. I mean, Daisy Ridley is about as feminine in all these movies as, toenail fungus. I mean, it's like she's a board. She's flat as a board. She has absolutely no feminine qualities. When you first meet Leia, she's wearing a dress. Meet Padme, she's in her queenly, stately costume. And when you see her when she's adventuring around Tatooine with Anakin and Qui-Gon Jinn, looks like a girl. Okay. Even when Leia, even in her Andor uniform, her fatigues, she's got her hair braided up. She's, not looking butch, which is, and of course we've got her look in at the end of A New Hope, the dress, the white dress, the ceremonial dress. We've got her Cloud City outfit, the red tunic dress with the pants and the slippers and the white jacket, and we've got the brown leather dress from Endor. Okay, different kind of styles. I mean, what Padme was wearing looked haute couture to me, which haute couture means hand sewn, hand stitched. Everything is done by hand, so it's made to order to fit a certain person. Okay, ready to wear pret-a-porter is just, if you even go to Saks Fifth Avenue and you see an Armani suit, that's ready to wear. Now, if you go to Valentino and you're looking at the designs and you say, I like that dress, that will be handmade for you, haute couture. Same thing at Dior and Christian Dior and Chanel, all the big fashion houses in Paris. That's how Padme was dressed because that's who Padme was. Okay, the dress, the black one where she has that collar, it's very, and she's got that corset. George designed that. Okay, so that was her costume made specifically for her. Okay, and like all the costumes are made specifically for the characters, but there was such a difference between what Padme wore, embracing her femininity, and what Leia wore, because she's a leader in the Rebel Alliance. And so her ability and luxury to be able to wear a dress, to be able to put on beautiful shoes, beautiful jewelry, belts, things like that, earrings, was very limited. But when she got to, the style was simple, it was elegant, It was Leia. Okay. And very modest. Whereas when you look at some of the dresses that Natalie Portman wore, her costumes were very high fashionable, very, very big. And the difference between the two female characters is Leia's were understated. And if you watch Kenobi and you look at what Queen Breha is wearing, very modest. That was Aldranian costume. Okay, modesty. All right. And the one dress that wasn't as modest for what Leia was wearing was the ceremonial dress. Okay. But you have these people, and I gotta go pretty soon because my phone's gonna die, insisting that is feminine and beautiful. All right. And I've seen this actress dressed up before, and she's really, I mean, look, Fiona Shaw. That woman purposely looks like this, all right, all the time. That's not a good look for a woman. You know, you kind of wonder why they uglied everybody down. And the only thing you can say is they don't like women. All right, they're trying to erase female beauty. I mean, again, look at these two scumbags. Blondie looks like a guy. She really does. It's like, the fuck, lady? Why? I know why. Because the people that wrote the story, the actresses, and the woman that runs Lucasfilm hate women. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't like herself. She's insecure about herself, etc. And for those guys who haven't seen the upload yet from this morning, it looks like Kathleen Kennedy has bent the knee to Iger and is on her way out the door. Okay, sometime. I can't give you everything I know because I talked to another person, and they basically said that there's more to it than that, and we could hear sooner rather than later. And that the Rey movie is officially canceled, as per Bob Iger's words to Jon Favreau. Lucasfilm is no longer asking Stephen Knight to rewrite scripts. That's done. They've shelved it. And Daisy Ridley's on Twitter or on Instagram talking about her new movie coming out, The Young Woman in the Sea, which is about swimming the English Channel. Okay, so that's the latest from her. So, you know, just get ready for anything, because I think if February was interesting, March and April could get way interesting. Okay, but officially, I'm gonna say Kathleen Kennedy's out on October 31st, unless we know otherwise, unless she announces she's gone sooner. Okay, that's all I can say. All right, it could be sooner. All right, it could be sooner. So I'll see you guys later. I gotta power up my phone, and y'all take it easy. Have a good afternoon. Talk to you later.